Bookworms. Have you ever read a book where you're like, damn, the subject matter, the characters, and the way in which a story plays out, you're surprised that this hasn't been transitioned into, say, a movie or a TV series? I just read a book and it's exactly like that. Subject matter, great. Characters, great. And the flow of the story was awesome too. So, Bookworms, welcome to the Weekend Readers Book Club. Thank you for joining us. I have just finished reading a book released in 2001, written by Harry Bingham, entitled Sweet Talking Money. This story, in a way, is a story of David versus Goliath. A startup pharmaceutical company ends up taking on the bigwigs with a revolutionary new, say, drug that people could take that could potentially change the world. Throw in a little espionage, throw in a couple of main characters, a cast of supporting characters that are just unique in their own way, and that's your band of the group of David taking on the bigwigs of the pharmaceutical industry that is Goliath. The story itself revolves around Brian and Cameron. Cameron's a scientist, Brian is an investment banker. They join together, they form a company, they take on the bigwigs because Cameron submits her paperwork to the authority of, say, medicine. Medicine knocks it back because of all the puppets or characters living in the shadow that is big pharmaceutical. They go off, create their own company, and the story is their battle to try and basically become an independent big dog and knock on the door of the big boys and go, look, my work's on par. The only reason you don't want it out is, you're scared. And over the course of 400 and something odd pages, we get that thrown love story in the middle between a few of the supporting characters and the main characters, and you get the great story that is Sweet Talking Money by Harry Bingham. And I've just finished the book. These are my thoughts about the book. The two main characters in the story, Brian and Cameron, great. The story itself starts off really hot, like you're just thrown into it. It mellows out in the middle and then picks up at the end. And the way Harry Bingham has done this, you learn more and more and more about the two main characters as you go along. And you take on board their arcs and their stories, both professionally with setting up this pharmaceutical company and also privately in relation to their own private lives. The support characters, we've got the receptionist, we've got the second scientist, we've got the IT guy. All those people were great. You throw in the millionaire too, great. They all played their part with the story, and it made the story interesting as we go along. Even in the slow parts, as I said, the story picks up hot, slows down in the middle, and then goes wild at the end. Even in the slow parts where you're learning more and more, especially about the supporting characters, it's actually really interesting to see how it is all tied in at the very end. I find myself getting to a point where I'm like, okay, this is the first 5 chapters, batshit crazy. Didn't know if I was swinging, good or bad, because it just throws you in there. And then by the middle of the book, I'm like, okay, it's slowed right down. I can see why we started off batshit crazy, and we're tying up everything. And now it's like, wow, okay, I'm looking forward to how it ends. And I can tell you how it ended. I didn't think it was going to end that way. Throughout the story, I got to the part, probably the last couple of chapters, and I was like, okay, potentially this is how it's going to end, and it ended the way I thought. But up until the last couple of chapters, I had no idea how the story was going to end, and that was really intriguing because they could have went multiple ways to close off the story. And it was great the way in which Harry Bingham closed off the story too. I gotta say, the material itself didn't, even though the story is based on a pharmaceutical company and also, small farmers and big farmers, the language which Harry Bingham used wasn't over the top sciencey per se. So somebody like myself who doesn't have an interest in pharmaceuticals or even a science degree, I was able to go into this, okay, sweet, I'm able to understand what they're going on about because it's not over the top. Harry Bingham has kept it so, in plain English, you're able to understand what is going on in relation to the pharmaceutical side with what they're trying to make and why. Also, with the story, enjoyed the parrot. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't read the book's got a parrot in it. So overall, it was a great story. Absolutely loved it. The question is, do I have anything negative to say about the book, and will this book be going onto my bookshelf? On the negative side of points, no, not really. I was engaged throughout this whole book. I enjoyed the character development and the story arcs, and I enjoyed the flow of the story. As I said, a little weirded out that you start off really hot and then die down, but the way in which he did that, it allowed everything to sort of fall in place and you're learning as you go along, which was great. So nothing negative to say about this. Will this book be going onto my bookshelf? Unfortunately not. It's a great book. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend it to anybody that hasn't actually read Sweet Talking Money by Harry Bingham. However, knowing what I know now, with the story being completed, I wouldn't go back to reread it. However, I am interested in getting another one of Harry Bingham's books because that story sounds awesome. So Harry Bingham may be an author that we come back to on the Weekend Readers Book Club. As one book closes, another book has to open, and it is now time to find out what the next readers for the Weekend Readers Book Club and Bookworms. We can confirm the next read is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Hopefully I've pronounced that surname correctly, Bardugo. Ninth House, this book was not on my radar. I had to go to the library to pick this up. The reason I got this is because the sequel was coming out, and the sequel came up on one of the Goodreads articles, going, hey, best sequels coming out this year. And I was like, oh, I read the premise of it, and I was like, what is book one about? And I read the premise of book one going, damn, that sounds actually interesting, and it's a fantasy book, so I'm going to go completely out of my genre in relation to this one. But Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, you are the next read for the Weekend Readers Book Club. So Bookworms, that was my discussion and review of Sweet Talking Money by Harry Bingham, a book thoroughly enjoyed, a book that I would highly recommend if you haven't read it and are interested in a little bit of espionage and pharmaceutical stories with David versus Goliath, maybe a book in your warehouse that you might want to check out. As always, Bookworms, you can feel free to follow us. We are available on Instagram and Goodreads at Weekend Readers Book Club, and also on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts from under the name The Weekend Readers. Until next time, thank you again for joining us. And Bookworms, happy reading.